Formula One will look at the concept of making sprint races standalone events instead of how the grid is set to make them more exciting. Formula One has recently made the announcement that there would be a total of 6 sprint events in 2023, up from the present number of 3 races that are scheduled for 2022. Do we truly need them? And what are some of the criticisms that might be leveled against the sprint race? Is this a smart plan? And are they trying to make the racing and entertainment more exciting? Since so many races had to be cancelled owing to the shorter year, COVID-19 in 2021 was the first time that sprint races were held. This was done in an effort to enhance the total number of races that could be held in the shorter year. This meant that qualifying would take place on Friday, and then on Saturday there would be a 100-kilometer sprint race. The purpose of this was to establish the starting places for the Grand Prix, which would take place on Sunday. However, Formula One has argued that these sprint races bring more action throughout the course of the weekend, with the drivers competing for places all the way from Friday to Sunday, which brings more drama and excitement to the racing weekend as a whole. The sprint race will make its long-awaited return at the Brazilian Grand Prix, despite the fact that the format adopted by Formula One owners last year has not always been met with great success. The format of the event was altered after just a single year in response to the vehement objections of those who, for valid reasons, could not recognize the champion of the short sprint race as the weekend's poleman. Thus, the FIA, under pressure from Liberty Media, planned to make adjustments to the sprint challenge posed by the 100-kilometer race, as well as to the scoring system, in order to make the event more appealing. This year, 2022, was planned to include an increase in sprint competitions. The 2022 Formula One season will only consist of 3 sprint races, despite the fact that this format was originally intended to be employed at 6 race weekends during the current campaign, due to failed negotiations between teams, Liberty Media, and the FIA. The first to impede progress were the teams who demanded more money. Liberty Media has agreed to the team's demands following a lengthy discussion. When it seemed that everything had been taken care of, it was the FIA that started ranting and begging for more resources to help plan the festivities. An argument broke up just before the season started, and after some background negotiations with Mohammed Ben Sulayem, Stefano Domenicali smartly chose to push everything back until 2023. After much back and forth, a deal was reached, and barring any unexpected last-minute reversals, the next year should bring the 6 short races favored by the required financial backing that, as usual, convinces even the most adamant opponent to alter their tune. However, a seemingly insurmountable paradox persists in regard to the sprint format, whereas Liberty Media is so enthusiastic about it that it boasts about successful forms based on market studies that would speak plainly, but it fails to grab people's attention of Formula One's fan base, especially the more conventional one that persists in using outdated templates. And then there are the drivers who provide the spectacle by driving with 1,000-horsepower racing vehicles. In this scenario, we are also not seeing a lot of favorable comments. It spans from attitudes that are somewhat neutral to ones that are rather stridently opposed, such as the one that Max Verstappen has voiced. The Dutchman feels, whenever I take part in the sprint race, the aim is always not to damage the vehicle and make sure we remain in the top 3. The only exciting side is having an extra start. But in the end, only those who start from behind can get back up, because using only one set of tires that lasts for a whole stint, not much happens. We have had so many exciting races, so there is no need to add an event that lasts a third of the distance. And then, added the Red Bull driver, everyone is very cautious, because if you're fighting for 3rd place and you have a problem and finish last, you know your weekend will be difficult. You probably won't take any risks, so it's not a real race, he pointed out. In addition, Verstappen is not the first F1 driver to doubt the relevance of sprint races. Whereas most drivers are reluctant to speak out, those who can are unified in questioning the rationale for abandoning the tried-and-true weekend pattern. Former Formula One world champion Sebastian Vettel, who will be retiring at the completion of the current season, made a very valid point when he said that the sprint race weekends were nothing more than a cash grab by the sports owners, Liberty Media, in order to appease promoters with deep pockets. In agreement with Verstappen, the German said, "I don't want to be the bad guy for just being the bad guy, but I think it is a way to make more money. If there is a race, obviously it's more exciting than maybe a practice session. You have more people watching. In that case, I guess it's a question of approach, but I don't have full access to the numbers." That's what we were told some while ago. Further in agreement is Lando Norris, who enjoys F1 as it is and cites the build-up from qualifying on Saturday and Sunday as the crucial aspects of a Grand Prix weekend. He says that these days are the most important parts of a Grand Prix weekend. Then Lewis Hamilton, a fellow Briton and 7-time winner of the Formula One World Championship, has not voiced any criticism of the concept, but has asked the F1 leadership to be cautious about where to stage the sprint races. However, the third and final sprint race weekend of the season will take place on weekend at the Brazilian Grand Prix. On Friday, there will be free practice 1 and sprint qualifying, and on Saturday there will be free practice 2 and the sprint race to determine the starting grid for Sunday's race. Well, there is no way to end the debate around the sprint race. The only thing that can be said for certain at this point is that the American ownership of Formula One will do everything in their power to both lengthen the season and establish itself as the mechanism of choice for race weekends. Anyhow, Liberty Media is profit-driven, and it is well aware that advertising space will sell better in association with a major sporting event. In addition, the TV rights, seeing as how the typical audience appears to grow over the course of the weekend for an event of this kind, which is extremely well received by the younger generations. It seems that nostalgic drivers and fans will need to adjust their expectations in order to continue following the series in its current trajectory, and there is absolutely no way to roll back. Overall, the reasons Formula One wants to expand the number of sprint races are evident, albeit it is not clear whether or not doing so is in the best interest of the viewers or the sport itself. Many drivers are unhappy with the format, the teams having to be bribed to alter their view, and the spectators are being charged more money to see what they assume to be a Formula One race, but isn't really a Formula One event. It is not meant to imply that there is no room for sprint races in Formula One. Rather, the manner in which they have been introduced seems to concentrate an emphasis only on financial gain. For instance, circuits like Estoril, Portugal, and the Nürburgring, Germany, that do not host an F1 race can host sprint races instead. It's also possible that the sprint race might take place on Sunday morning before the actual Grand Prix, which would enhance the experience rather than detract from it. So a new sprint championship may be introduced to Formula One next year, but is it really necessary? Thanks for watching this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. Additionally, if you're new to this channel, I strongly encourage you to subscribe and click the like button. You can also keep up with all of my most recent videos. See you in the next one.